Hey gamers, Maniac here with GamingSuccess.net doing a new Mind of Maniac. Back in the year 2000, there was a movie coming out that was directed by Steven Spielberg. It was still in development at the time, and it was ramping up to be a major blockbuster release for that year. It was called AI for Artificial Intelligence, and it starred Haley Joel Osment. Now, a lot of people consider that movie to be probably one of the worst movies ever made, and probably one of the worst of Spielberg's career. I saw it when it was on HBO, and I didn't really like it. I didn't care for it that much, to be perfectly honest, and I remember the Nostalgia Critic and other reviewers basically kind of referring to this movie as probably one of the worst movies ever made, with one of the worst endings ever. I wouldn't say I'd go that far, but I certainly understand their sentiment about this. But like I said, before the movie came out, there was a huge media frenzy for this movie. Advertisers were going crazy for this. And in the lull before the movie came out, we found out how it was. Somebody noticed something kind of odd on one of the promotional releases for the movie. A poster, the kind of poster that you see in theaters hanging up under the Coming Soon banners and things like that, for AI, featured a very weird string of letters underneath the major poster. Almost like a code or something. They looked it up on the internet and stumbled into a whole new world. And I think that brought to our concept of an entirely new type of gaming called the alternate reality game, or ARG for short. An ARG is a game which has no executable. It takes place here in the real world. You don't boot up a game or boot up a player or a console or a television or something like that. You actively participate by doing real tasks here, whether you go searching for something, whether you make phone calls or receive faxes, letters. It's a game which blurs the line between what is a game and what is not a game. Kind of like that movie starring the guy from Disclosure. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. The guy who's married to Catherine Zeta-Jones. I can't remember his name, but it'll come back to me, or I'll just post it below. But Michael Douglas, that's it, Michael Douglas. Seems kind of, it definitely seemed like, it grabbed me. It certainly grabbed me. But I never participated in the AI ARG, or really don't exactly know the details. All I know is that it took a major effort from the entire internet, and I know there were a lot of puzzles that they had solved along the way. So it was a group community. It was a community issue, and people did work together for it. Around that same time, EA was working on their own alternate reality game. And they were poised to make money off of it. I was always a fan of conspiracy theories and aliens and Area 51 and things like that growing up. Especially after I saw the movie Independence Day when I was a kid. I was always a big fan of that kind of stuff growing up. I've since gotten over it, but I was a huge fan of it. And EA was working on this new type of game called Majestic, where there would again be no game executable. You had to, in order to play the game, answer phone calls, or you'd receive faxes. You basically play by doing things in the real world. Again, you'd have to visit websites that they set up, which were all in-universe and were dummy websites, but things like that. You'd have to, you'd receive phone calls from actors, asking for their help or giving you important information to help you. Skype, you'd watch what we would call Skype conversations, but basically they were all real player footage of video clips and things like that. You could do instant messages with other people, basically, both real in-game actors or AI systems, basically, that would give you information if you asked them the right questions or gave them the right responses. All of this would basically move the entire story along with this revolving around this shadow government or these people that are controlling things and things like that. Most of it has since been, obviously, a lot of the stuff, it does seem kind of dated because there are a few references that are now very dated, basically. Like one guy mentioned that he did know the real Deep Throat, and the way he described him, now we know who the real Deep Throat is, for example, and he was nothing like the guy was described in the game, basically, the real Deep Throat, I mean. So it is a bit dated with the information. But they did actually get, this is how far they actually got, they got one of my favorite actors of all time to actually do the final episode that was released of the first season, Joey Pants, or Joe Pantoliano. You may remember him from The Sopranos, playing Ralphie on The Sopranos. I remember him, I know a lot of people also remember him because he played Cypher in The Matrix, but I loved him in that movie he did called Midnight Run with Robert De Niro. I loved him in that movie. And I also loved him in U.S. Marshals. He was great in U.S. Marshals. With, I am just terrible at remembering actors' names right now. Tommy Lee Jones. So there was that. Fast forward a little bit. Majestic comes out, and the way EA released it, at least at first, was they were doing a pay system on it. So you had to pay per month, almost like how you would pay a month per MMO, basically. It was like that. You'd pay, you'd participate in the episodes that were available as new episodes would come out. They would automatically unlock. You would get phone calls, you would get faxes, you would get instant messages. And the whole idea is that you have to solve the conspiracy. It was all happening in real time, basically. Somebody says they'll call you tomorrow, they would in fact call you tomorrow. The demo level took about 3 days to complete under real-time conditions. Most people took 6 days from what I heard. The later episodes would take as much as a week to complete. Like I said, it was a lot of fun. They couldn't monetize it though. I think they tried it. I don't think that they could keep their subscription numbers. They did try releasing it at retail, but they didn't do a very good job releasing it at retail from what I heard. I had already played it digitally, so I was no reason to pick it up at retail, but there was a retail box with a CD basically. All it did was basically include the game launcher, which was a tool that you use in order to help you with certain things. It wasn't really a game itself. It wasn't really like a game executable, basically. And what was the other thing they did? The problem was there was a lot of full motion video in the game, and all of it was streamed through Real Player for some godly reason. This was back in the days when Real Player was like the only way to stream content, to stream video content, and it didn't do a very good job, especially if you were on dial-up, which I was, unfortunately. And I wish, and I think a lot of reviewers were kind of hoping that they would have included that full motion video, the video clips on the CD, but they didn't. You still have, even if you had purchased it at retail, you still had to download the clips and stream the clips, and that kind of sucked. But that aside, I kind of had fun with it. I really liked it. Made for some some fun during my, when I was done with school. It made for a little fun diversion, basically. But unfortunately, I don't think EA was successful in monetizing it because they never funded later seasons for it. Once the first season was over, the 5th episode was released. They had teasers for a 2nd season and stuff like that, but they never went with anywhere with it. They stopped charging people as soon as the season ended, and they discontinued it. I think they may have posted a small blurb on what the final story would have been on their website, but unfortunately I never looked at it, or I think I just skimmed it once, and unfortunately that website's no longer in operation, so I don't know what the story would have been. But I think they did post a treatment for what their plan was, basically, for that sort of thing. It didn't sound like it would have been that much of a conclusion. It would have been a happy ending, sure, but maybe I think they realized, was it really worth it to do all that? And so they kind of just stopped, and the series ended. I think the problem with Majestic over some of the other game systems, like the AI before it, was that, one, it wasn't a group dynamic. There was no collaborative effort across the internet to solve these puzzles. Everybody operated on their own progress. Each individual had their own progress. And the second thing is that they charge for it. They charge, I think, $10 to $15 a month to play. which is, like I said, that's MMO territory, and this kind of was like MMO territory, so it was a kind of a fair pricing model. I think when they finally went to retail, I think they charged $30 for it, but for a retail, to play it with the retail box. But you still had to have internet connection, you still had to have, you know, phone service, that sort of thing, basically, in order to play, really. But you could at the very least get through the initial download stuff without having to download the clients. That would all install automatically from the CD. So there was a lot there. Unfortunately, I don't think it worked out. However, fast forward a little bit further. 2004 came around. The biggest game releases, and I honestly to this day think that 2004 was probably one of the biggest years for gaming releases ever. Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater came out that year. Metroid Prime 2 Echoes came out that year. Half-Life 2 came out that year. Doom 3 came out that year. It was a big year. I think Wind Waker may have come out that year, but I think it might have been 2003, so don't quote me on that one. But I think maybe Wind Waker might have come out that year. If not, it was probably Four Swords Adventures or something like that came out that year. So, 2004 is upon us. The biggest promoted game that was going to, the biggest promoted game release of that year was going to be Halo 2 for the original Xbox. The sequel to basically the reason why you got an original Xbox in the first place. And probably the sole reason why I signed up for an Xbox Live account. So there's that. During the promotion, trust me, there was a big advertising push for Halo 2's release. They decided that they were going to release feature-length commercials. And by commercials, I mean like, you know, TV commercials, basically. It's 30 seconds to a minute, basically. So, basically cut commercials for Halo 2. And they were going to put those commercials in theaters. Now, nowadays, that's like no big deal. When you go to a movie theater to go see a movie, you're usually bombarded by about 100 commercials before the movie starts, as well as the movie trailers. That didn't happen back then. Back then, they didn't really put commercials before movies. What they only did was they only put the previews and the trailers before movies. I hated this. For a very good reason, actually. I always hated the movie trailers before movies. And the reason why is because, even though I love movie trailers are great in a lot of cases. I think that there are some great movie trailers today, and I think there have been some great movie trailers in the past, certainly. I just don't think that they ever played any good movie trailers at the movie theaters before a major preview. In fact, I remember when I was a kid, when I used to go see a family film or something like that, like, you know, a kid's cartoon or something like that, they'd usually show about 30 different horror film previews before this. I don't know, was Tyler Durden running the projection booth or something? I don't know. But I always remembered that. And I always hated those a-holes that ran the projection booths for doing that thing. You know, if you want me to, you know, show me some good previews, please. I want to see them on a big screen. Nowadays, you know, people wonder why Apple iTunes is so popular, because they actually can show you the trailers you want to see. But that aside, there's a Halo 2 trailer, and like I said, obviously I never saw it. It was never shown in any of the theaters I went to go see at the time, but it was shown in theaters, and many people did actually see it. It was later released online. And basically, it was, like I said, a type of commercial that you'd see on television for about 30 seconds to a minute. But there was something kind of odd about it. When the final logo came up, Halo 2, coming for original Xbox, basically, they showed on the bottom of the screen the www.xbox.com website. But for a split second, a quick second, on the bottom of the trailer, the Xbox.com website changed from Xbox.com to ilovebees.com. And then changed back. Now, a lot of people thought this couldn't possibly have been some type of error or some type of coincidence, even though they tried to make it look like it was an error or coincidence. And people started flocking in droves to this website called www.ilovebees.com. And they came across what looked to be, in all intents and purposes, a site about loving bees. Maybe like a honey producer or something like that. I can't remember. What it was in reality was Microsoft's brilliant marketing strategy for Halo 2. An alternate reality game. They crafted a story. They hired some firm, basically, to craft a story to kind of work basically in the Halo universe, and then had it so that, or designed it so that it could be used in our universe. Starting with the website, there were other websites that you could seek out with puzzles and information. I never participated in the I Love Bees promotion itself, but I did certainly take a look at all the content. I certainly, it's still available. You can still check out ilovebees.com. It's still up. If you're feeling nostalgic, or if you just want to see what it was all about, basically. The whole idea behind it was that it was trying to lead up to the release of Halo 2 and try to tell a new type of story in the Halo universe. I believe the story was about a AI, not Cortana, but an artificial intelligence like Cortana for the UNSC, that somehow ended up in our reality, crashed and merged in the internet in some portion of it. It was trying to sort itself out. And in the process of sorting itself out, gave away the position of Earth to the Covenant, basically. It was a radio drama that unlocked itself as the puzzles progressed. There would do calling for payphones. I remember that G4 actually did a whole piece on it back when G4 was good. When they actually reported on the events, they showed guys hovering around payphones, seeing based upon the GPS coordinates of those payphones. And this was back in 2004, before everybody, GPS was very expensive back then. So, this kind of, to have GPS coordinates and you're waiting by payphones to give the proper information, that sort of thing. It was exciting. It was exciting that this kind of thing, like I said, it's just like an ARG. It blurred the line. It was fun because here you were playing a game that was being treated as if it was real. You were basically, it was making reality even more fun, basically. Reality is boring, in a lot of cases horrible. There's war, there's poverty, there's famine, there's disease, there's everything else, basically. There's, unlike in, the comic books when when an oil derrick or something like that catches fire, Superman can't exactly fly in and save everybody, basically, because we live in the real world. It sucks. When there's a tornado or there's something destructive, some superhero can't just fly in because they don't exist. I think that there's a need for, I'm not saying there's a need for superheroes or anything like that, but I'm saying that there is a need for fun in real life. I think that there's some form, that there is a need for diversion in play. You can't just have people just kind of standing around working, go home, sleep, standing around working, go home, sleep. You can't just have that. And that's, I think, what really attracted people to the ARG. And I think that's certainly what attracted me to the ARG. It just kind of beefed up. I have a love for these games. I have a love for Halo. I have a love for all this stuff. Didn't really have a love for AI, but when they finally got to Halo, basically, I have a love for this source material. And I liked seeing it being played out like it was real, just for a short time, Just a fun little diversion that I could participate in, and we all could participate in and work together to solve, basically. There was a radio drama for I Love Bees that was posted up as the puzzles were being solved. I think it had something to do involving a girl that had some kind of superpowers or something like that, who was getting into UNSC, things, and it's just like it was nothing. I never really watched any of it or listened to too much of it because there was a lot of content there. And from what I've been told by a lot of different people, none of it really, there were no nods to it in Halo 2. It seemed like the ARG was basically designed to revolve around Halo 2, but there were no nods in Halo 2 to really specifically reference I Love Bees at all. It just wasn't. There was no nods to it. In fact, as far as I know, there were certain things that actually have since been retconned about I Love Bees. Like, I think that there were other reasons why the Covenant found out the location of Earth. I think in I Love Bees they established that it was the reason why the Covenant found the location of Earth. I think since then there had been disagreement, and there are other reasons how the Covenant were found Earth, basically. So yeah, there's that. I think that there was an update to I Love Bees somewhere around the time Halo 3 was posted, but I don't think it actually had a puzzle or anything like that. I don't think there was really, I think they just updated the website, basically. Like I said, if you're really interested, I Love Bees is still operational. You can give it a check. But I think that a lot of people are probably going to remember what happened in 2007 and 2008. one of the biggest movies of 2008, and probably the best movie of 2008, by hands down, deserved the Academy Award. I have no idea why it wasn't nominated. The Academy must have had their hands, been sitting on their hands and been blindfolded if they had not seen the awesome might of this movie. And that was, of course, The Dark Knight. The Dark Knight, in the time leading up to The Dark Knight, similar to what happened for AI, in the time leading up to The Dark Knight, don't get me wrong, this was probably going to be one of the most anticipated movies in quite a long time. The Batman franchise had come back after the release of Batman Begins, which had been considered to be by many, probably one of the best superhero movies made. And a lot of people argued that that was the best Batman movie made. So here you had it, the same development house making another Batman movie, and this time they were going to use the Joker. They were going to do the Joker, basically. And a lot of people were looking forward to this movie. And to this day, if you haven't seen The Dark Knight, stop this video right now. Just watch it. It really is that good. And here's the thing. Here's the kicker about it. There was a viral campaign for The Dark Knight. No joke. It started on the website. I believe it was called whysoserious.com. It was what started it. I believe that there was somehow they might have hidden a link to it in the official website. I think they might have redirected to Why So Serious or something like that. And the whole purpose behind Why So Serious was basically just to do promotion for the game. It had kind of established that the Joker was setting up websites and that Gotham City had real websites on the internet and you could go through them. There were a lot of puzzles. It culminated with many puzzles. I remember the website batmanonfilm.com, and that's batman-on-film.com, was tracking this because that was, as far as I know, the biggest Batman film site on the web, and probably still is to this day. Was tracking all of this information, basically. And there were a lot of fun stuff that they were posting up. And it was the first time we got to see tidbits about what Harvey Dent would look like. The first previews, it had links to the first previews for the prologue, the first scene, when the prologue hit IMAX. It actually offered up for regular people to see the prologue. I actually took half a day off from work. Well, it was a half day already. It just so happened that I already had a half day off from work basically that day. And I printed out passes for me and L Train, actually. We went all the way to New York to go see the Lincoln Square IMAX over there, which is a great IMAX. They have a full-sized IMAX in Lincoln Square, New York. And we went all the way out there to New York to go see the prologue for The Dark Knight. And we went back. It was a lot of fun. It was a great day. And that's how we got, and it was through that viral campaign. In case you're curious, tidbits of that actually did make it into the game, the final product actually. It basically led up to, the whole idea behind the campaign was that it was leading up basically to the election. It was trying to keep people in real time basically updating what's going on in Gotham between the events of Batman Begins and The Dark Knight. Which is very interesting. It all would have culminated basically, and it all did in fact culminate, with the election of Harvey Dent. In fact, actually, they sent out ballots that were mailed back with Harvey Dent on the ballot. There were websites set up for Harvey Dent's competitors. I believe in Harvey Dent was, if I remember correctly, was his official website. Like I said, there were nods to it. I believe in Harvey Dent. There were T-shirts. There were I vote for Harvey Dent rallies in the real world. In fact, I think Aaron Eckhart himself in character did appear at some of the I Believe in Harvey Dent rallies. I think there was one in New York he appeared at, which I did not unfortunately attend. I don't know if that one was open to the public, but he did I'm pretty certain he did actually do an event in character. And the Gotham Tonight stuff, which is a special feature, for those of you who have seen the special features on the Blu-ray disc for The Dark Knight, the Gotham Tonight series. And if you haven't seen that, watch those videos. A lot of the news references in Gotham Tonight were specific references to the ARG that they were doing. The line about smiling in the camera about after stealing all this, these chemicals, that was in part of the ARG. The scroll stuff did It was all part of it, basically. It all fit in universe. And the last call that they made was about the bank robbery. That's how it ended. It ended with the call about the bank robbery. That was so much fun. That really was. That was a great ARG. That was so much fun. It treated, you'd get newspapers sent, buttons. I remember I literally went to the movies with a Vote for Harvey Dent buttons. I went with some friends and we all had the buttons in our shirts and everything. Vote for Harvey Dent. We completely stuck out like sore thumbs, but hey, we didn't care. It was, these things can be so much fun. The last time I heard about something like this happening was for the release of Tron Legacy, actually. A lot of people didn't like Tron Legacy. I'm a huge Tron fan. I liked Tron Legacy. I really did. I liked it. And I think it was really imaginative. I really wish they had kept with the visual style from the first movie, but I think they wanted to try something new. There was a new director. I get it. So there's that. But they did one hell of an ARG over this, and it all revolved around search for Kevin Flynn and Flynn Lives movement and things like that. This, of course, was around the same time that Jeff Bridges won the Academy Award, so seeing pictures online of a 1982 Jeff Bridges basically saying, "Have you seen this man?" The obvious joke is, well, have you seen the Academy Awards lately? Either that or some homeless guy was taking Jeff Bridges' Academy Award, basically, which maybe some people did think might have been possible, but, we loved him in The Big Lebowski. After Tron Legacy hit DVD and Blu-ray, they actually did do a follow-up on it. The Tron Legacy ARG actually culminated with a major event that they did. And trust me, if I was in San Francisco or anywhere even remotely near San Francisco, I probably would have attended, where they had people actually come in and do a protest during a time when Bruce Boxleitner and Cindy Morgan were doing a presentation in character. That alone would have been awesome. I love Boxleitner and Cindy Morgan. I think they're awesome. So I would have loved to have been able to attend that. And the whole idea behind it was that Flynn's son was supposed to come on in and disrupt it by parachuting in. And it didn't work exactly as they were hoping it would, because of heavy winds and things like that actually knocked the parachutist off target. But they did actually, when they finally did do the culmination of it, it was included as this special feature which a lot of people were looking forward to seeing, called The Last Day. It was released with the Blu-ray, and it basically was not only a culmination of to what was the after effect of the movie, but also what was the after effect of the ARG. And it basically established who the identity of Isolated Thinker was, and who the identity, of course, was Zack Attack was, who was the person that had created the ARG in the first place, which was kind of awesome that they did this in universe. They also included some clips and some behind the scenes stuff and things like that. So it was pretty cool, actually, that they decided to make the ARG in universe as they could. And these, of course, became tidbits for the next Tron movie if they decide to make one. And I hope they do. I really did like Tron Legacy. I hope they make another Tron movie. So there's that. Most recently, I'm sure everybody is really thinking about this. Everybody's been talking about this recently with the release of Infamous Second Son. Everybody's been talking about Infamous Paper Trail and the website infamouspapertrail.com. Not just this is DLC. For those of you who aren't familiar with Infamous Second Son, honestly, I haven't even had a chance to play this. I don't have a PS4 yet. But with the first patch for Infamous Second Son, it included free DLC for a new submission called the Paper Trail. The fun part about it was that the Paper Trail didn't just get played in the game itself. It wasn't just a sub-quest that you could just seek out. You actually had to register on the Paper Trail website, which, as far as I know, works now. Check out some websites that are in-universe on the real web. And once you complete those tasks, then you go into the game and do some tasks in the game, and then go back to the web and do more tasks. It's not a total ARG in that live events, as far as I know, real events in the world are not actually happening, like there was in Tron Legacy or things like that. But needless to say, it is cool to see some fake websites up with that kind of thing. You have to actively participate in the website in order to complete these tasks, which is kind of cool. It's kind of cool. Maybe, I don't know, maybe this will get further, as the Paper Trail website has not finished. As far as I know, the Paper Trail DLC has not concluded. They're still releasing episodes for it. I think they're up to episode 4 on it right now. It's available to anybody who has a copy of Infamous Second Son and a PlayStation Network account. So if you haven't heard of it and you are playing Second Son right now, go check out Infamous Paper Trail. But I'm just saying, it would be cool to see if they do like a real world event. They've got a real world location. Infamous Second Son is taking place in the city of Seattle. It is taking place there. So, have some protests or something. I don't know. It would be kind of cool to do that sort of thing. I mean, Sucker Punch is literally in Seattle. That's why they chose Seattle. It was their home, you know, that's where their business is. It's their home city. So it'd be kind of cool to have like a real world, you know, it'd be great promotion for the game, which is already selling quite well. That's just what I have to say about it. In short, I think that these ARGs add a great level, not just to the games that they promote or the movies that they promote, but to they're like one of those things that basically make life a little bit more fun to live. Basically, it makes things a little bit more fun and a little bit more interesting. Kind of like the Bad Kid controversy, not controversy, but the Bad Kid event, basically, from a couple of months ago when they had a kid running around Seattle. Again, Infamous Paper Trail events in Seattle, it works. Seattle seems to like doing this kind of stuff. When they had Bad Kid running around, there were actual, and I'm not joking about this, there were actual federal indictments against Edward Nygma and Oswald Cobblepot after the events of the Bad Kid, after the Bad Kid day. You know, we love doing this stuff. Gamers love this stuff. You know, people like doing these real world things that are fake. You know, they like doing fake things in the real world. People like dressing up in costumes. People like protesting for fake things. It's great. You know, it is fun. And I really hope this continues. I'd like to see more of this. I'd like to see, you know, maybe the next Halo game has it or something like that. Or something else. I don't know. I'll leave it to you guys. I'll leave it to the people who do this kind of thing. Until next time, guys, here's Seen in the Alternate Reality. This is Maniac with Game Access. Over and out.